Good afternoon and good morning to our West Coast listeners. My name is Juan Thomas, and I have the honor of serving as chair of the ABA Civil Rights and Social Justice section. I am so honored today to welcome all of you to our weekly chair chat, and I'm so excited that this week our guest is my friend and colleague, Aracely Muñoz, who is the director of the Lawyers Network for the Center for Reproductive Rights in the Washington, D.C. office. And I'm also happy to share with you that she's also the co-chair of the Rights of Women's Committee for the Civil Rights and Social Justice section. Aracely, welcome to our chair chat. So grateful that you could be with us today, and just wanted to say welcome. And we're here to have a very important conversation about a subject that I know you are a leader in and an advocate for, and that is reproductive rights in the United States of America. And I just want to start off by asking you to if you would just share with us, in light of the Dobbs decision and the whole Women's Health versus Jackson case, what is the current state of reproductive rights in our country?
Wow, well, thank you for having me. It's always great to be with a fellow Midwesterner. I am a Chicago girl, so it's always nice to be amongst friends. And I think that's a great question to start off. I think it's really important to center us where we are at right now in this moment of time. You know, we just surpassed 100 days after the Dobbs decision. We are already a year plus past the whole women's health decision that focused on the SB 8 and the vigilantism laws. And, you know, I think the one way to describe it is chaos. It is sheer chaos. Many states had on the books pre-Roe bans, trigger bans that all went into effect or are still in the process of being brought into effect. And so it is a constantly shifting landscape where you really don't know moment to moment what healthcare you have access to. And I'm very purposeful in saying that because there is this assumption that it's just affecting access to abortion, but it has so many other impacts, and I'm sure we'll get to that further in our conversation. But I do want to highlight for folks a couple of key things to keep in mind of where we are in this moment of time. Right now, the United States is one of only 4 countries that has removed legal protections for abortion access in the world. We're only one of 4 now, and the other countries are El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Poland. And right now in our country, 80 million women and birthing people do not have access to abortion care, which is an essential part of reproductive health care. Right. And those are really startling numbers when you also think that in 13 states, abortion is now illegal. And many do not have exceptions for rape and incest. They may have a health exception, but it's so ambiguous that goes to the point I made just a moment ago, that it is creating ambiguity and chaos and an inability to access critical care, even for those who want to or are trying to have families. So that's just a really quick, snapshots. I could go on and on and on about the impacts. And
well, let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. You know, the theme of this year for our section is around economic justice issues. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to bring out through these conversations, what are the economic impact on a lot of our civil rights and social justice issues in a broader context. So could you kind of drill down on, from your perspective, what is the economic impact of the Dobbs decision on poor communities, vulnerable communities, and poor families?
It's catastrophic. I think many of our communities already don't have access to insurance coverage. They already are in healthcare deserts. We still have some of the highest numbers of birthing people or people who have gestational capabilities. So now you're seeing critical reproductive health care further and further and further out of reach. And so that's one component, right? So whether you want to or not want to continue with the pregnancy, there is no health care for you, or it's very hard to secure adequate health care for you. Then you add to that, if you want to terminate a pregnancy, that is now even further out of reach for those of limited economic means. You know, before you could travel 25 miles, perhaps was the average distance to secure this reproductive health care within your community. Now, 125 miles, in some instances 500 miles. And not only that, but the economic cost is not just the cost for the actual care, but now you have to find money to travel out of state because you may be in one of those 13 states where you don't have access. If you have a job, you're going to have to take time off to get time to go to that second state to get this care. If it's a state with a waiting period, a 2-visit waiting period, that means you'll have to travel twice. Most folks who access abortion care, we're talking about 59% of patients who already access abortion care already have a child. So that means that they have to find childcare, and that's a cost. And then you have to get the care. And so that is a tremendous cost for families that are already living on very stringent economic means. I just want to add one other layer to this.
Sure.
Then you add, if you have a state with vigilantism laws, I mean, think about that. Like you work on a factory floor, you work in a minimum wage job. Heck, you work in any job. And now you have to go to a supervisor to ask for this time off. And you don't know what they're going to do with that information. You don't know if they're going to try to take some action against you for seeking medical care. That further thwarts accessing this care.
Right. Wow. The 13 states that you mentioned that have already just, I think the trigger law or outlawed abortion outright. In an economic justice context, of those 13 states, are they states that are traditionally viewed as poorer states with high levels of poverty, or is it kind of more of a broader mixture? And do you see other states banning abortion access outright beyond those 13?
So the 13 states, it's a mix. I mean, you have a state like Texas, which is a majority minority state. It's states that have pockets where it's booming, where there's a lot of population growth, a lot of economic growth, but then it's also a state with healthcare deserts. If you go to the Rio Grande Valley, you have states like Georgia, which is similar. It's a growing population. It's, robust economy with the film industry, for example. But then you have Mississippi, which is a poor state. And now Mississippi has no clinics. And again, it can't even provide drinking water.
Right.
In some parts of Mississippi, as you know.
Right.
So it really runs the gamut of states. It's states with negative population growth, like Iowa. I mean, it's a cross section of states that are taking this really extreme action. And, it's really contrary to what you're seeing in the polls. I mean, Kaiser Foundation did a poll in July, and I want to say it was over 60% of folks that were polled in states that had restrictive laws were against the decision of the Supreme Court in Dobbs, and they wanted to see states actually protect access to care. So what you're seeing in state legislatures and what you're seeing in the polling may not always be in sync. And we saw what happened in Kansas, where it overwhelmingly voted down what was going to pave the way for abortion restrictions.
Do you see further litigation or legal battles around this question of reproductive rights, or has the right won and now it's going to be up to states to decide how to address this question?
Well, I mean, I think for now it is in the purview of states. I think that the litigation will continue. I think that it will increase at the state level. I think we're seeing it now as our organization and our sister and brother organizations take on this action. So we're going to see an increase in state litigation, but I think the battle will continue also at the federal level, because there are already laws that, like EMTALA, which is the emergency medical, it's got such a long acronym. It is the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. I mean, this is a decades-old law about providing appropriate emergency care. So, you're still going to see it at the federal level. And we're seeing great strides. I mean, the administration has taken over 20 executive actions to include directives to veteran affairs to provide access to abortion care. DOJ has taken on suits in Idaho in violation of their laws being in violation of EMTALA. And so I think you're still seeing activism at the federal level. And, when the new Congress comes back in session, we will see what legislation gets introduced or reintroduced to protect. I mean, the other side is also still battling. And, they too have also introduced legislation at the federal level to ban abortion completely in all states. So the fight will continue.
There are several resolutions that the ABA adopted this past summer during our annual meeting. Many of them were introduced by our section, trying to respond to the Dobbs decision. What work do you believe that the ABA generally, but also our section, should be engaged in now to advance reproductive rights? Is there specific legislation that you think we should be focusing on? Certain resolutions that we need to adopt for policy purposes? How can lawyers be engaged in this process moving forward?
Well, those are great questions. I mean, I think the ABA has a very important role to play. I mean, the American Bar Association is the bar of our profession, and it has a reach and an influence beyond the United States. It really stands for the rule of law. And so I think it has a very important role to play. And I think it has a very rich history of protecting access to abortion care. I mean, it's 92 policy, which is a seminal policy, asserting a woman's right to abortion care. And I think that what you saw this past August at the annual meeting really demonstrated the commitment that our fellow lawyers have, not only to access to abortion care, but really the rule of law, because within those resolutions were resolutions addressing vigilantism in any kind of law. I mean, where really citizens are deprived access to go before a court, where states are designating enforcement of laws to private citizens with no real recourse. That's chilling their access to attorneys with fee shifting schemes. So I think the ABA is really leading in that respect with these resolutions. Data privacy around reproductive health, those are really critical. And the section has been really the real leader within the association as well, and pushing and bringing together other sections that are also very committed to this. We do have other sister sections at the ABA. So, it also is a convener of experts, health law experts, family law experts, litigation experts. And so to have those experts be at the forefront and say, as a profession, we are taking a stand for the rule of law and the rights of a person to make a decision when, how, and in what manner to have a family is really critical. If the lawyers don't speak out, then who will? And we have a duty. We have a duty to uphold our Constitution. So there's a lot that the ABA has done, and we hope it continues to do. And there's a lot that other associations can do, and especially our national affinity bars. I mean, we are leaders within our various communities. Right. We are who people look to for information, for understanding of our courts and our system for rule of law and our democracy. So I think there are many, many roles. And so the ABA has, and as many other bar associations have, been involved in amicus briefs in the Supreme Court. I think we see it not only in abortion rights cases, but the ABA has taken positions on affirmative action and voting rights, and really being at the forefront. And so have some of our sister national affinity bars and state and local bars are signing on. In this last case, Dobbs, we saw an amicus brief from the API community. Many API bar associations signed on. Our Native American bar leaders led a brief representing Native American communities. So again, you see that leadership from among lawyers standing up for the rule of law and for these rights. So, obviously pro bono, litigation, all of that comes part and parcel. But I think the power, we hold so many positions in our communities of power that are not necessarily as a lawyer. Right. We are school board leaders, we are, counselors to family and friends, and so we have an educational role. We have a role that we can advocate in our state and federal legislatures, and the ABA does it on the Hill. And the ABA, engages the United Nations. And so there's so many platforms in which lawyers can take action, and we can donate, we can volunteer, we can do so many things. There's really no end. We are a Jacqueline of all trades. I want to be gender friendly. And I think that we should leverage all those skills that we learn in law school to really continue to be advocates at the forefront.
I want to connect the dots, if you will. Last week we talked about election protection, and this week we're talking about reproductive rights. Would you be, could you connect from your perspective, without being political, because we can't be political with the ABA, but how important is this election in the context of the future of reproductive and healthcare choices for American citizens moving, well, for all people in this country moving forward? What's at stake here?
So I work for a 501c3. So unfortunately, I can't talk about elections. We are a nonpartisan legal organization. What I can say is that if your readers want to make that connection, I strongly urge them to read the opinion, the Dobbs opinion, because the Supreme Court does talk about voting in the decision. And I think that that clearly draws, it's a bit pernicious, but you know, I would direct all the lawyers watching this and the non-lawyers to enjoy
read the decision
or not enjoy reading the decision,
right?
And really hone in on that point.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing that and making sure people do read the decision. And as lawyers, we all know reading is imperative, right?
Yes.
Yes. So let me shift slightly, but same topic. We are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month this month, and I would like to hear from your perspective, what is the impact on this decision on the Hispanic community specifically, and what's being done within the context of the community in response?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. And, you know, I think one of the things I'll start off with, I think what people don't realize is that 1 in 5 women and girls in the United States is a Latina. I think people are a bit astounded by that data point. And we have high rates of gestational capabilities within our community. So we have a number of people who can access and need access to reproductive health care. But like many communities, we have a lot of the same struggles. You know, we have some of the lowest insurance coverage rates. You know, ACA didn't help everyone in our community because of immigration status. You know, we struggle with geographic access. As I mentioned a moment ago, you know, we live in healthcare deserts, as some of our Black and other brown brothers and sisters do. So we don't have access to care in an easy manner. You know, we have language barriers, not having, you know, linguistic competency or cultural competency, financial constraints. You were talking a moment ago about, you know, limited economic means. We also have to deal with perceptions of immigration status, whether real or perceived. You know, are you legal? Are you not legal? Are you a US citizen? Are you not? And that really, you know, creates a barrier to access to care. And I think, like other communities, you know, we have, you know, experienced institutional racism in healthcare, and in particular around reproductive healthcare being used for experimentation for contraception, for example, forced sterilizations of Latinas in the United States, Mexican Americans and Puerto Ricans, but also in our countries of origin. Also forced sterilization. We don't have to, sadly, we don't have to go too far. We saw what happened a couple of years ago at the Irwin Correctional Facility in Georgia, where immigrant women were forcibly sterilized. Right. So, you know, it's that distrust that also still exists in the community. And, you know, I think there's a misconception that we don't access care even within our community. I mean, 21% of all birthing people who receive abortions are Latinas. And if you look at majority minority states like Texas, where there is a long history of a Mexican American, of a Latino communities, 36% of the Latinas access abortion care there, you know. So, and we're 42% of childbearing women in that state. So again, you know, there are a lot of misconceptions about our community. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions about how we feel about caring for our families and friends who access this care. I mean, 67% of Latinos did not want to see Roe v. Wade overturned. And over 90% of Latino Catholics would say they would help a loved one access abortion care. I mean, it's such a human thing to do, right? You who doesn't? I mean, everyone loves, knows, and has helped someone who's accessed abortion care, whether you know it or not, or you're aware of it or not, you have. And who wouldn't? Who wouldn't do that for someone they love? So I think that there's a lot of misconception about who gets it, under what circumstances, and and there's a lot of stigma, unfortunately, around it. I mean, we have created that.
What you're touching on is how personal and private and oftentimes difficult this issue is for families. And like you said, so many families have dealt with this, if not all families. And one thing that I think is really significant that a lot of people, I don't think, realize are the number of people who have an abortion have already had a child.
Yes.
So it's not like they're using this as a form of birth control. This is, they have a family, and they're making a very difficult decision in the context of how their family is going to grow. And so I think oftentimes the legal litigation and public policy side of this becomes our focus, and we forget the human and personal side. So I'm really glad you highlighted that.
Yeah, we forget to center the people most impacted.
Right.
There are a myriad of decisions that people consider and come to conclusions about for a whole myriad of reasons. And so I think, and not just, oh, whoops, I got pregnant. I didn't expect that. That's just like a sliver of it. There are a whole other spectrum. I mean, people who are trying to have families, going through IVF or other forms of assisted reproduction may be in a situation where they have to terminate a pregnancy, or they have a miscarriage or an ectopic pregnancy. So there are a whole myriad of circumstances, and then there are very personal choices. They have children. They want to make a decision that is best for their family in this moment in time. I mean, many are very aware of what it takes to raise a family, and and calculate that in their decision with whomever they feel is most important for that decision.
Thank you for sharing that. As we begin to wrap up, I like to allow our guests to sometimes share a bit about themselves that people may not know. People know you as a lawyer, an advocate, a proponent of civil rights and social justice issues, a leader among leaders. And so we sincerely appreciate you being here. But tell us something about yourself that most people don't know.
Wow. Well, I mean, I am a huge fan of British mysteries. And I am non-discriminatory. I will watch any British mystery. It's like pizza. I'll eat it no matter what. I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's from Domino's or from like the gourmet pizza place.
I hope you prefer deep dish from Chicago.
I love deep dish. I'm a deep dish girl at heart. That's what I'm saying. But I love pizza writ large. So just like I love British mysteries writ large, even the terrible ones, even the terrible ones.
Good to know.
I'll get sucked into watching them.
And what's the last book you read?
The last
book that you're reading now?
Well, the last book I read was A Woman of No Importance, which is the story of Virginia Hall, who was a World War II spy. And she was actually part of what then became the CIA. And so she was one of the most wanted spies by the Nazis. So it's a fascinating story. A very inconspicuous woman, but she was, powerhouse. And then I'm currently reading Agatha Christie, An Elusive Woman by Lucy Worsley.
Oh, okay.
By historian Lucy Worsley. So all over the place.
And my last question is, if Aracely Muñoz woke up tomorrow morning and she was not a lawyer, what would she be?
Ooh, that's hard, because I really love being a lawyer. I really love what you and I have been entrusted to do in our communities and in our country. And I take my commitment to our Constitution, my promise of my Constitution, very seriously. Right. But I think I would like to wake up one day and be rich beyond belief, so that I could fund all the things I care about and make all the changes I want to see in the world.
Fund your values. That's what
exactly. So I think I would like to wake up one day as a lottery winner with billions of dollars. Not so much a profession. Right.
Well, that too can be possible. Right. Well, Aracely, thank you so much for your leadership, for your commitment, not only to our profession, but to the causes that you and I and so many others care so much about. You are one of the leading voices in our society and in our profession around reproductive rights and choice. And we love your passion, your commitment. And I pray that all of us find our passion in our work as much as you have. So thank you for being our guest today, and look forward to continue to work with you, not just this year, but for many years to come.
Me too. And thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate this opportunity.
You're welcome. And all, please, if you missed this live conversation, you can follow us on our YouTube channel and watch this chair chat online on our YouTube station.